Hidden History is brought to you by G2A.com and our supporters at Patreon. Over the past few weeks, we've covered a lot of the Fallout games that, for one reason or another, were cancelled before any of us got a chance to play them. But Fallout isn't the only Bethesda property to have games that didn't make it out the door. This week, it's all about the Elder Scrolls, which had a few dead and unreleased games of its own. We'll start with a cancelled title that a lot of you probably have heard of, The Elder Scrolls Travels: Oblivion. Intended to be the first portable game in the series, Travels was in development for the PSP. The footage from the game that you're seeing now leaked earlier this year, and it gives us a rare look into what could have been. The game wasn't actually a Bethesda Studios project. Instead, they farmed it out to Climax Group London, a studio mostly known for mobile racing games. Due to the hardware limitations of the original PSP, the game was planned to be a lot more linear than the version of Oblivion found on consoles and PC. But Climax was determined to keep as much of the great Elder Scrolls formula intact as they could. So instead of an open world, they created a hub world filled with vendors, NPCs and story characters, along with introducing a teleportation crystal for the players to use that would take them to each of the explorable areas of the game. The plan was also for every area to have multiple paths to be explored that were open or closed depending on which quest was active at the time. And though the game's story was intended to be a companion piece to Oblivion's, its setting was very different. Most of the game was going to be set in the region of High Rock, with Anticlear, Moonguard, Glenpoint and even Daggerfall as explorable areas, each with their own plane of Oblivion that would reflect their location. 180 original quests were planned to be included in total. In the end though, Climax had bitten off more than they could chew. Development on the game moved at a crawl, and by the time the studio decided to switch the game over to a much faster engine, it was too late. The game was quietly cancelled without a single official comment from Climax or Bethesda in late 2006. Now, moving backwards in time, we have not one but two sequels that never materialised, starting with the Elder Scrolls adventure Eye of Argonia, planned as the second game in the Adventures trilogy that started with Redguard's release in 1998. Todd Howard elaborated on the game in an old interview before the release of Morrowind, saying, "We have a design for the sequel, but it's not in development. It's called Eye of Argonia. There's been some talk of doing it for the PlayStation 2 or another console where those kind of games sell much better." Ultimately though, Bethesda decided not to pursue a Redguard sequel, probably because Morrowind was such a huge seller while Redguard was a bit of a financial disappointment. Morrowind included a small hidden nod to the project though, with a character in the game saying they were searching for the eye. A little more may be known about the third game in the planned Adventures trilogy, which many people say had the working title of Paradise Sugar. According to former Bethesda writer Michael Kirkbride, it would have taken place in the southern region of Elsewhere, the home of the Khajiit. And you would be able to play as a few of the members of Strathar's family, who Redguard players may remember as the Khajiit who supplied Cyrus with a lot of mercenary work in the game. But of course, for the biggest Elder Scrolls cancellation of all, you have to go back to the beginning. Well, not cancellation exactly, more of a complete overhaul of the game that was released. The very first Elder Scrolls, Arena. As many fans know, Arena was originally planned to be a much more simple gladiatorial combat game, with the idea being that the player and his or her team of gladiators would travel around, fighting in different arenas throughout the country. The team thought it would be a good idea to include the option to leave the arena and buy some items around the town. This exploration, of course, eventually overtook the arena concept of the game, giving us the series we now know today. But because marketing material for the game had already been released, the team was forced to stick with the title Arena. Next up we have our comment showcase. This week's comes from Captain Scroof, who believes that the Wisp Mother, from Skyrim, may be based on the Huldra, a seductive female creature found in Scandinavian folklore. There are many different versions of the Huldra found throughout legend, and many of the stories line up with Skyrim's Wisp Mother pretty well, starting with the idea of the creature kidnapping children, which lines up perfectly with some of the legends surrounding the Huldra nymphs. This week, our shoddy comment comes from Zach Hyatt, who says, "You want a Stormcloak joke? Here's your Stormcloak joke. The Stormcloak Rebellion." Now for some trivia. Last week we asked you who founded Mass Effect's mercenary group, Eclipse. And the answer was B. Jonacedorus. This week we have a tougher one. The main religion in High Rock is the Brittany Pantheon, where there is 12 divines. In the Pantheon, who is the goddess of beauty and young? A. RK, B. Dofferin, C. Mara, or D. Debella? Tell me your answer in the comment section below, and while you're down there, why don't you tell me what one of these games that were cancelled, or, well, the original version of Arena, that you would prefer most? I honestly actually have a big interest in the PSP Oblivion game. I would have played that to bits on my travels. What about you guys? Anyway, I will see you guys on next week's Hidden History.